Hello friends, this is Rishayan. Trying to get the camera. I'm just using a cell phone trying to get, I hope you can see me. Alright, it's sort of hard in the woods. Uh, I'm going to talk about today the way that I'm treated being a hobo in the US and being a hobo in Mexico. Two distinctly different ways that the people treat me. If you have a backpack and you're walking through Mexico in a rural area, it doesn't matter how poor you are or how indigent you are, whether you're homeless or anything like that, you're automatically going to be profiled by the people as being a tourist, an eccentric tourist, but you're a tourist and you may have money, you know? In the United States, it's the exact opposite. You're wearing a backpack, especially a big backpack, and walk along the highway in a rural area, you're immediately profiled as being homeless or a hobo, such as I am. Two different ways, and it's two different ways that the people treat you. You know, uh, in the U.S., I noticed that the people don't treat the homeless in the same way as they treat other people, especially in fast food restaurants and convenience stores and Walmarts and supermarkets. If you go in with a backpack and you look like you've been out for a while, it's very hard to keep completely clean or keep your clothes completely clean. You're profiled as being a homeless, and I think that the employees think like, I don't have to treat this person with any kind of respect or good. They're just a bum. They're just a homeless. And I feel like sometimes that's the way I'm treated. The way they rudely say things to you, the way they never say thank you when you buy something, never, or greet you, and comparing it to the way they treat other people. One time, several years ago, I was in California visiting friends of mine, and a friend of mine, he bought me or lent me a leather jacket. I don't know if it was real leather or fake leather, I don't know, but it was very nice looking leather jacket, something that I never would normally buy or use. It just looked really, really nice. And I went to him like to the supermarket, to Walmart, and so I wasn't carrying a backpack or whatever because I was staying with him for a while. And I noticed immediately that when I went to the cashier to check out, how they treated me so much different. I thought, wow. I said, they're not treating me the same as they normally treat you, I mean, I was treated, I could tell the difference, that I was treated differently. Maybe because of the leather jacket or whatever. Unfortunately, in the U.S., the homeless and hobos are not treated as decent human beings. They automatically assume that we're a drug addict, that, or this or that. Most of the assumptions are far from the truth. Most of the homeless you don't see. That's something too, while I'm thinking of it, I want to comment on that. Because I seen something in on YouTube the other day, that someone was making a commentary that, oh well, most all the homeless that I've known, are drug addicts. Well, that's the homeless that you've known, but that's not true about the majority of homeless people in the United States. The majority of homeless people in the United States you don't ever see, or you can't tell the difference, because they live in their cars, or they're temporarily living with friends, or they're living like me well into the woods, and they keep clean, and they're not all tattooed and look like a zombie, a drug addict, so you can't really tell that they're homeless. Yet they are homeless, yet they are indigent, or yet many of them are working. Many of the younger ones are working. They just can't afford this ridiculous and absurd rent that occurs in the United States. So you can't really tell. But the ones that you do see out on the street with their backpack, their tents on the sidewalk or on the beach, and their hair in 30 different colors and earrings in every orifice of their body, and covered in tattoos. I mean, yeah, well, that's the image that you get. That's the image you think, oh, that's the homeless people. But that's not the homeless people. The majority of homeless are not like that. I remember a long time ago, I lived in San Antonio, Texas, homeless in San Antonio, Texas, and they did a survey that of homeless people, supposedly, and they printed it, I guess, in the newspaper. I don't know where I read it, but they gave the percentages of homeless that were had a drug problem or an alcohol problem or were Looney Tunes or something like that. And the other homeless that were just down on their luck, that just couldn't afford to pay the rent. And many of them working. And like I said, they were maybe sleeping in their cars or with a relative temporarily or something. But they were still homeless. And it was like 55% were normal. And it was like 45 to 50% were the druggies. You know, so it was half the people were maybe drug addicts. But the other half were not. You know? Well, but that's the thing. So in Mexico, you know, walking around with a backpack, hoboing on the highways, mostly in rural areas. I don't really like urban areas that much in Mexico. There's advantages, you know, things are cheaper and you have access to stores and transportation, whatever. But the good thing about Mexico is you have transportation everywhere in the country, something you don't have in the U.S. In the U.S., once you get outside of the urban circle where there's public transportation, you're on your own. I mean, there's no transportation. In many small cities, even some medium-sized cities in the U.S. have really no public transportation connecting them with other places. And so you're on your own in rural areas in the U.S. and you just walk and walk and walk. But fortunately, and that's one of the reasons I like Mexico and I live in Mexico most of the time, is because we still have public transportation throughout the country, connecting even the most rural village, high in the mountains or deep in the jungle, with some form of public transportation. Many of them are colectivos, they call them, or shared taxis. They're taxis, but you pay a set rate, and they literally pack the taxi with passengers, and they leave when they get full, and they have a fixed route that they go on. But it provides service to many small rural communities, so that at least you have some service. Here, for example, when I'm staying with my mom in the state of Pennsylvania, where I'm camped right now, there's no bus service on Saturday or Sunday. First of all, there's no bus service near where she lives. I have to walk about 2 miles to the nearest bus stop. It's serviced like once every 2 hours, and it's only Monday through Friday. So Saturday and Sunday, I'm trapped. I can't leave. I can't go nowhere. But fortunately, in Mexico, it's the transportation is available 7 days a week. Not at night, not during the night, but most of the day into the evening, and all the time. You know, in large cities in Mexico, you have transportation basically around the clock of some form or another, public transportation, and in between major cities. In the rural areas, for example, in the state of Guerrero, where I have a little shack, because of the high crime rate, transportation generally stops about 6 to 7 o'clock in the evening, and that's because of security reasons. You don't have too much transportation beyond that during the night. But then it starts right up very early at 5 or 6 a.m. The transportation starts again. But in the center part of Mexico, you can have service basically 24 hours a day on the public transportation buses. They have leaving day and throughout the night. How do the people treat me, though, when I'm walking, when I'm out in rural areas? You know, I noticed today, for example, I left my campsite to go buy food, and walking down the road, I'm in suburban Philadelphia, a person who I later profiled as being an immigrant, but you know, he's with his headphones on, he walks by, and he said something rudely to me. You know, I didn't understand really what he said. He just made I don't know if it's an insult or something, you know, and but I could pick up in the little word that he said, whatever he said, an accent, so I know he was maybe Jamaican or African or something, but he wasn't an American. But why the rudeness? You know, why, you know, people, you don't walk by somebody and just say some stupid thing and keep on walking. I mean, it's so rude, you know, so rude. Of course, Americans are very used to rudeness, but you should not get used to rudeness. It should not be something that we should get used to, you know. And the other day in the same area, there was also I profiled as being an immigrant because he looked Iranian or something, and he looked lost. But he walks by me and he gives me a very hard look. You know, I mean, why are you giving me that hard look? When I'm in Mexico, people don't look at me like that. They don't give me hard looks, you know. I mean, it's like they're smiling, you know, or in cities in Mexico today with the insecurity and everything, most people, unless you say something to them, they ignore you. They really don't say anything. But in rural areas, the people, will say something to you or talk or greet you or buenos dias, buenas tardes, you know. One thing I learned a long time ago, my compadre taught me this because I really wasn't used to it from coming from American culture, that when you walk in a rural area in a town or whatever, if somebody's sitting on their porch or sitting in front of their house on the step or just alongside the street, unless it's a big city, but in a small town, not in a big city, but in a small town or a little village, the correct thing you should do is you greet them, buenos dias, as you walk by, buenos dias. I mean, you're in their land, their territory, their village, their zone, so you greet them. They respond, buenos dias, buenas tardes, señor, and they, if they don't respond, that means you're not welcome there. I mean, if they don't respond and they just keep looking at you, then you can feel like, well, maybe I shouldn't be on the street. Maybe I'm not welcome. But 99% of the people will respond. And if they had many of them will look at you, not really with a hard look, but maybe an unsmiling look, because they're waiting for you to greet them, to see how you are, because you're not from there. You're from somewhere else. So they, who are you? How are you? And with a great deal of insecurity and delinquents running around the country, people are noticeably cautious, right? But as soon as you say buenos dias, then the smile comes across their face. Ah, buenos dias, señor. ¿Dónde va? O qué busca? I mean, they might start a conversation. Where are you going? What are you looking for? I mean, they're ready and willing to help you. They're ready and willing to help you. In the United States, it's just not like that. Whether you're in a small town or a big city, there's little or no friendliness at all. They basically will not say anything or turn their head if you say something, especially if they're a young person. That's something that really gets me here, is that because you're not supposed to even think about talking to a minor in the U.S. It's like a crime, which is horrible. People say, why are all the young people on drugs? Why are the young people so violent and this and that and so evil and whatever? Well, why? Because what are they teaching them in American schools? To be unfriendly, be antisocial, don't talk to strangers. Well, don't talk to strangers is an awfully antisocial thing to teach young kids, and they do teach them that in almost every American school. So what do you expect them? So you say hello, and they turn their head like, why are you talking to me? What kind of attitude is that? In Mexico, it's totally different. In Mexico, in many places, you don't have to say nothing. As the young person walks by, they'll say, buenas tardes, don. Don. They now call me don, D-O-N, which is sir, in Spanish. Out of respect, because I'm an old person. I'm out of age, for my age. I don't even have to say anything. Of course, I respond to them. But they'll say to you, buenos dias, don. Or if I say to them, buenos dias, yes, they will respond. Yes, they will respond. They're not going to turn their head like you're not supposed to talk to them. So the way I'm treated in different countries, just wearing a backpack, can be completely different. The way I'm treated here, the way I'm treated there. I can walk for miles in rural areas where there's no public transportation in the U.S. and nobody would even consider giving me a ride or stopping and offering a ride. Believe it or not, in the year 2024, 2023, in Mexico, even with the high insecurity, and not in the whole country, but in many parts of the country, people will still, in rural areas, not in urban areas, but in rural areas, people will still offer you a ride if they see you're walking out in the middle of nowhere. It's still common. I mean, it's you shouldn't be surprised. I mean, it'll happen, and they have good intentions. They're not offering a ride to rob you or to do something bad. It's just like, well, you're walking and you're out in the middle of nowhere, and that sun, that unforgiving Mexican sun, well, we'll offer you a ride. Unfortunately, that doesn't even occur to people here as they zoom by in their car. So I don't even consider, I'd be shocked. I'd even be afraid maybe today if somebody offered me a ride, what's their ulterior motive? I mean, this is just not common. But in Mexico, no, they don't have an ulterior motive. It's a good motive to help you out. Look, what are you doing? I noticed a big change in the last 20 years, 10 years in Mexico particularly, probably due to the insecurity. But I don't see anywhere near as many people along the roads or walking in rural Mexico as I used to see 20, 30 years ago. Um, it was very common 20, 30 years ago. Today, because of the kidnappings and the crime, you don't see as many people out. Although it's a little, how can I say, TV, the internet has way too much to do with it. If it wasn't for TV and the internet, I think you still would see people out walking around. What it is that they're bombarded in the internet and TV with little violent events that occur, the narco wars that are occurring in different parts of Mexico, and they see that, and even though they may live in an area that's basically peaceful, where crime is rare, actually, they become paranoid, and so it's not quite as common as it used to be. You have to go really deep into the very rural areas where it would not be common to have narcos or organized crime elements going through those areas, and where especially in the indigenous areas, where the indigenous people have more control of the area, where you still will see indigenous children and women and people walking alongside the roads. But in other areas, you just don't see it like you used to. But you see me, I'm not afraid. I still walk all over Mexico in the rural areas along the roads with no fear. I mean, yes, of course I'm taking a chance, but I'm not taking any of a bigger chance than I would be in the United States, where there's also, people in cars in the U.S. are dangerous people, uncaring, very dangerous people. That's the one difference too I've noticed. If something would happen to me in Mexico, if I got sick or I got hit by a car or got injured or got assaulted or something like that, I guess it's a bird. This area is covered in birds, and I hear a noise like a human, but it's not a human. There's nobody there. There are deer that go through here. It's a bird. Yeah. The birds here in this area that I'm in are not afraid of humans. This is strange because I'm in a very closed, thick, bushy area, and the birds just aren't used to seeing humans here. So they come up amazingly close to me. I'm shocked at how close they get to me with little fear. But there's a bird over there that's looking for worms or something, looking for bugs in the ground, and they're making a little bit of noise. It almost sounded like it was a human walking over there, but not. Anyways, gone off track for where I'm at. I just love living in nature. I mean, it is so relaxing. At night I sleep so good. And even with the nearby noise, and unfortunately in the United States, another comparison between the two countries, you can never escape that freeway noise. You can't escape the noise of the freeways. There's even if you're 50 miles away from a freeway, you still at night will hear that noise in the distance, the trucks and the constant noise of the freeway. Where I'm camped now, I'm not real close to a freeway. It's probably a mile away. I'd say about a mile, 3/4 of a mile to a mile away is the nearest freeway, but I hear that noise at night. But even despite that, I still hear all the birds, and there's a lot of birds here. In fact, last night I couldn't figure it out. I guess because I'm in an urban zone, because of the lighting, but the birds are singing all night long. I mean, they don't get quiet at night. I guess because they see light and they think it's morning, and it's really not morning, and I can still hear these birds singing. Of course, they sing more in the morning time, but it's just beautiful. But anyways, and in Mexico, when I'm camped in Mexico, that's one thing I also love in Mexico. When I'm camped in a rural area, in the bush, in the jungle, in the desert, in the forest where there is forest, you don't hear nothing at night. I mean, nothing. If there's a person talking, 400 or 500 meters away, you'll hear their voice, because it's that quiet. It's just so much different. Traffic comes to a complete stop at night in Mexico, and unless you're in a big city. But in rural areas in most of Mexico, it is silent at night, and that's just so nice. Not here. Believe me, I've camped across Texas in very rural areas, a long ways from a major city, but there's still freeways and highways that are full of traffic, and you still hear that noise. I camped up along the Appalachian Trail, and I remember up on the top of the trail in the mountains, you could still hear the freeways down in the valleys, you know, that they're all around. You know, you just can't escape in the U.S. But in Mexico, you can encounter complete silence, you know, complete silence, or you camp along a river and all you hear is the flowing of the water at night. That's just so nice, just so nice, and it doesn't cost anything at all. For even a hobo like me can enjoy these enjoyments that only the rich and really enjoy as they travel with all their tons of money around the world. It's very expensive today to travel, but in Mexico, a hobo can still do that. Yes, it's there's crime. Yes, you're risking that the wrong person might come across you, but basically, it's not that bad. Where was it? I had come across some men that were armed, because there are armed men. Many of them are affiliated with organized crime gangs, but they're there for other reasons. They're not there to really to hurt you or to kill you or whatever. But it was in another narco state of Tamaulipas, which is on the border, and I was camped in the woods. Actually, it was before I had actually camped. It was in the late afternoon. I had been cooking. I had my little campfire, and I had made some food that I bought, and I heard this noise in the bush, and these 3 or 4 men that were armed come, and the first thing they said to me is, "Don't be scared. You know, don't be scared. We're looking for something else. You know, we're not looking for you." And I said, "Well, I'm not scared. I mean, if they shoot you and they kill you, they shoot you and they kill you. I mean, what are you gonna do? I'm not gonna run. You know, I mean, well, I can't. What am I be scared about? You know." But by many of them saying that to me, they don't be scared. You know, and we're doing something else, and that's it. And they left. You know, it's just not that I'm not saying that Mexico is safe, but it's just a different thing here. If the police or the owners of the land, or most of this land is owned by the super rich corporations, own most of the little patches of forest or bush or natural land that you'll find around big cities is not owned by individuals necessarily. It's owned by the investment companies, real estate companies, the super rich. This is owned by a company, I won't mention the name, but I believe this belongs to them, that have administrative offices nearby here. But anyways, but if they see you, they're gonna get rid of you. I mean, they're not gonna be nice to you. They're gonna say, "Oh, don't be alarmed. You know, get the hell out, bum." You know, but that's a big difference if you're walking around with a backpack in the U.S. or you're walking around with a backpack in Mexico, and how you're treated and how the people treat you. Well, that's my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Rishayan. Have a nice day.